Okay, I can now finally say that I have seen all the Mission Impossible movies. Leading up to this one, I finally watched 1, 2, and 3, and then I watched 4, 5, and 6 again. So real quick thoughts. The first one is pretty good. A little dated with the slow-mo, but that scene where he drops down and he has to be real quiet, that was really tension-filled. That was good. The second one, yeah, oh my god, it was bad. Really campy, really cringe. That one never happened. 3 was actually really good, and to me it actually had the best villain of the entire series so far. Philip Seymour Hoffman, dude.
Whoever she is, I'll find her and I'm gonna hurt her.
That's what I'm talking about. Ghost Protocol and Rogue Nation are still my favorites of the series, and by the time I got to Fallout, I just started getting kind of numb. I don't know, there's just something about that movie that doesn't really flow with me personally. It's cool, but it is a bit drawn out. But now we got 7 Part 1, so how's this one? Mission Impossible: Dead Reckoning Part 1. So Mission Impossible Dead Reckoning Part 1 is, like I said, Part 1 of the 7th Mission Impossible movie, Paramount's really successful film series starring Tom Cruise based off the old TV show. After the events of Mission Impossible Fallout, we have this sentient AI now that calls itself the Entity. It's gone rogue, kind of like Ultron but without the personality. Now Ethan Hunt and his Impossible Mission Force team have to take it out with friends and allies old and new, and twists and turns and misdirection, you know, classic Mission Impossible. This is our mission now, should we choose to accept it. So yeah, how is this movie? Whoa! This movie was a lot. Yeah, that's my real big takeaway from this one. It's long. And actually, I'm gonna touch on that first, since that's like first and foremost on my mind. I actually didn't know how long this movie was gonna be. I assumed, somewhere around 2:20. Standard action movie length. No, this is a 2 hour and 43 minute movie. So yeah, longest Mission Impossible movie yet. And in my opinion, the movie didn't really fly by. No, it feels long. You do feel the length of it. You feel every minute of it because it is packed to the brim with content. A lot of stuff happens in this movie. Makes me wonder how long part 2's gonna be. 3 hours? Might very well be. That's kind of what happens when you have an episodic series like this. Eventually you will get to the 2-parter, and it's gonna feel a little more epic than most of the other episodic episodes. I mean, that just makes sense, right? Right, okay, so Tom Cruise. Look, after Top Gun Maverick last year, we all know that he is actually a pretty good actor. We already knew that he's a big action star, and he does most of his own stunts, if not all of them. But his actual acting, that's what I was looking out for in this movie. And yeah, he is pretty good. And it works because Ethan Hunt actually has some personal stakes in this movie. Not gonna spoil what they are, of course, but it fit for his character. It fit within the context of the series. But I would say the other main character in this movie is Hayley Atwell, newcomer to the series as Grace. Man, is it great to see Miss Atwell on the big screen again. Grace starts the movie off as not much more than your average common pickpocketer, kind of reminded me of Black Cat, but she gets dragged into this whole IMF adventure, and her relevance just grows and grows throughout the entire movie. That, to me, was like the strongest point of the entire thing. It was her character development and growth. Her chemistry with Tom Cruise, their banter back and forth. Cause yeah, she is not used to these crazy adventures and these larger-than-life stunts, so she's gonna do a little bit of freaking out. It made it fun to watch, it was funny. Grace was very well written. Our villain this time around, his name is Gabriel. He's played by, alright, how do you pronounce this one? Esai Morales? Something like that. I really like the fact that he does have Ethan Hunt spooked. This is kind of where the whole personal stakes thing comes in. Again, gonna keep it vague. I like that aspect of the villain, but he as a character himself, yeah, he was not that interesting. I mean, most of the villains throughout the series have not been that interesting, which is actually one thing that made Philip Seymour Hoffman stand out more. But yeah, as for this guy, he did kind of bore me personality-wise. Sure knows how to fight and throw down though, that's for damn certain. We also have Pom Klementieff in this movie, I want to point her out. She plays Gabriel's right-hand man pretty much. She's a badass, she really does know how to fight, man. Her fight scenes in particular, like, I love seeing her on screen. She doesn't say a whole lot, which is actually another thing that contributed to her uniqueness as an antagonist in this series. In fact, I would probably say personality-wise, she was more interesting than Gabriel was. So there that is. And as far as returning characters go, yeah, we have Simon Pegg and Ving Rhames, still no Jeremy Renner like in Fallout. I do wonder what happened to him. But hey, they gave no reason for the absence of Paula Patton or Maggie Q. That'd be awesome though if in the next one everyone came back, that'd be cool. But anyway, getting back to it, alright, Rebecca Ferguson is back of course as Ilsa Faust. And we know she's on our side now this time around after the events of Fallout. She's still a really interesting character. A couple of her fight scenes in this movie were highlights. And Henry Czerny is back as Kittredge from the first movie. I do wonder what prompted that decision. There are a couple of scenes in this movie where he's talking talking to Ethan Hunt where they throw back to the first movie with the cinematography. Like those lower close-up shots, where they're going back and forth. They do that in this movie. It's a throwback for sure. It works though, and he is still as intimidating now as he was in the first movie. If not more so, because it's been 27 years. Alright, characters out of the way now, let's talk about the action, because that is what this series is all about. And yeah, the action scenes in this movie are just as entertaining now as they've always been. I'd say the standout action scene in this movie is this car chase in Venice, Italy. It's Tom Cruise and Haley Atwell, they're driving this little Fiat, and people are going after them. It's really entertaining, it's awesome. When it comes to these big action scenes in these Mission Impossible movies, they never fail, they never miss. From 3 on, I would say. And a lot of close calls in this movie too. A lot of times I was biting my nails going, oh god no, they're gonna go down to the wire! Another staple of the franchise. I mean, this being part 1, you know that some of the tension is gonna be lost because yeah, some of these characters are gonna be in part 2 at least. So that's kind of a ding, but not too much. And also, this movie does have a lot of humor in it, which actually really relieved me. That is one thing I felt Fallout missed, was the humor that Rogue Nation and Ghost Protocol had. That's one of the reasons those two are my favorites, because they were more lighthearted than the other entries. Easier to watch that way, more casual, I guess. The humor in this movie isn't like the humor in 4 and 5. It's not like dialogue-based humor. It's more situational circumstance humor. Like something will physically happen, I'll be like, that is hilarious. I laughed out loud quite a few times in this movie, including during the Venice car chase. The humor mixed with the action very well. Gotta give props to director Christopher McQuarrie on that. He's been directing this series since Rogue Nation. I guess Tom Cruise just really likes the guy. And of course, this being a newer Mission Impossible movie, I gotta talk about the big, larger-than-life stunts. The big one they advertised in the trailers this time around is where Tom Cruise is on a motorcycle and he jumps off the cliff. Yeah, they did that for real, and that shit is just insane. My eyes were glued to the screen when that part came up. In fact, from there to the end of the movie, my jaw was on the floor. I was all in on it. There's a crazy action sequence with a train, which I also saw as kind of a throwback to the first movie. Which, speaking of, you want to know what I don't buy and will never buy? People standing on moving trains. Yeah, that wouldn't ever happen. That's just unrealistic unless they have some sort of magnetic boots that they didn't mention. Just whenever I see people standing on moving trains, no matter what movie we're talking about, I'm always like, no, you would be falling off and rolling on the ground. And possibly dying, depending on how fast the train's been going. I know in the grand scheme of things that is kind of a nitpick, but I guess I've just seen it in enough movies where it's starting to irritate me a little bit. Still a fun scene to watch though. And my final nitpick really has nothing to do with the movie itself, but I saw this in IMAX and no scenes in this movie really stretched to IMAX aspect ratio. I guess they didn't advertise that they would, but I mean, come on, that would have been really cool. Fallout did. They had a couple of IMAX aspect ratio action scenes. This movie didn't. Even the big motorcycle stunt, it was just plain widescreen ratio. I was like, it was still cool to watch, granted. Again, has nothing to do with the movie itself, and I'm sure they had a budget given they shot this during lockdown, so who am I to complain about that? It's just something I thought of though. The score, once again composed by Lorne Balfe, is once again awesome. We all love that classic Mission Impossible theme, and some of Balfe's previous themes that he had in Fallout are back in this movie. I recognize them. That's really cool too. Again, always love it when previous themes from previous installments are brought back in newer installments. That's always a plus in my book. So in the end, Mission Impossible Dead Reckoning Part 1 is a lot of fun. Like I said, it is absolutely filled to the brim with content. I know each of these Mission Impossible movies have tried to outdo themselves with each entry, but in this one, they really do succeed in that. These huge action sequences, they're crazy over the top for sure. I mean, not as ridiculous as Fast and Furious, for example, no. But still, a little bit unrealistic in that Mission Impossible kind of way. It's not like anyone takes a car into space. But the characters are great, the writing is really good, the score is awesome, just this movie is a lot. It's a lot to take. 2 hours and 43 minutes, and you're gonna be sitting there in your movie theater seat for all of it. Just be prepared for that. I still think Ghost Protocol and Rogue Nation are far better than this, but I still had a great time with this one. For Mission Impossible Dead Reckoning Part 1, I will say, go see this movie while it's in theaters. Seriously though, that would be really awesome if just everyone came back for Part 2. You could have like an Avengers Endgame moment. So Mission Impossible Dead Reckoning Part 1. Have you seen it yet? What are your thoughts on it? And who's your favorite villain in the series so far? Whatever you think, go ahead and leave a comment. And of course, thank you for subscribing. Peace!